In this video, I'm going to talk about the supercharger speed on the 90 kWh battery pack that has been restricted. So this is going to be a long ass video, so if you're looking for a short, informative video, then you have to look somewhere else. This is really detailed stuff I'm going to explain to you. Yeah, and oh yeah, by the way, the t-shirt I should also show you. Oh yes, Optimus Prime. Oh yeah, I received it during the road trip. The Easter road trip, by the way. The Easter Europe road trip, which was during Easter. Not the Eastern, because we didn't visit any of the Eastern countries. Only Poland and Hungary and Slovakia. Yeah, those are actually considered Central Europe. But anyway, okay, off topic, sorry. So we're going to talk about the supercharger speed. So I will show you some diagrams. You have probably seen some of them before. So let's start with the first one. This one, some of you guys probably recognize it. And by the way, during this video, I will only talk about the 90 kWh pack, because from what I have experienced and tested, this only applies to the 90 pack. The 85 is not affected, but I don't know if the 75 or 60, you know, the restricted ones also applies. I'm not sure, as I don't have any test on it, because it could also be the same chemistry as a 90, but let's just talk about the 90 for now. So this one is actually the charging, like the power, the graph of the power on the 90 pack in the old days when it was new. And then in 2016 the speed was increased quite a lot. So some of you guys probably recognize this. You see that the charging speed is actually pretty high, over 110 kilowatt, up until around 45% state of charge, and then it has this significant drop, and then it goes up again. And you know, back then I suspected that this was a thermal issue, and it turns out it's still very likely that it is thermal. So let me come back to that why. So I recently tested a non-restricted 90 pack. Actually, it's the same car. So you know that dip, we are not sure if that dip applies to every 90 pack in the old days. I mean, in 2016 or not. I mean, it could also be that specific car. It was a 90D, a Model S 90D facelift, which actually had some issues with the battery. So the Tesla gave the owner another battery, like a loaner battery, and then that battery was shipped to, was it Tilburg or somewhere, for repairs, and then shipped back and put back in the car. So meanwhile he was using a loaner battery. So then, but anyway, so the charging graph here should be more or less the same as the other cars. I mean, it could be higher, because I was a little bit puzzled why the charging speed didn't go beyond 110 kilowatt. Because I've seen on other people have reported 115 kilowatt peak on the 90 pack. So yes, I'm not sure, but that car hasn't been supercharged a lot, like less than 50 times or something, and it hasn't really used DC, other DC charging with its CHAdeMO. Oh yeah, by the way, okay, let me do a quick explanation what this is all about for people who don't know about this. Tesla, well, according to sources, Tesla claims that the 90 pack, if the 90 pack has been DC fast charged too much, basically for most people it means supercharged, but it also actually applies to CHAdeMO. So if you use CHAdeMO or supercharger, there's like a counter, an internal counter in the car, and when you pass that counter, which is supposed to be around 300 charges, the BMS, the battery management system, will restrict the maximum power that the car can take. So this is the whole thing about this video. It's about that. And then supposedly the maximum power is restricted to about 90 to 95 kilowatt. We're gonna see that number soon. But anyway, so I tested this car, and as expected, it charges pretty fast. But you see, it didn't have that dip that it had 1 year ago. So why is that? Well, if you compare that, you see that last year it charged much faster at lower state of charge, and you know, I believe that the 90 pack has like, it has not so good cooling compared to the 85, because people who has the 85, I also had the 85 before. I supercharge a lot, I travel all over the place, I put massive mileage on that car, and still I didn't see any reduction in supercharging speed, because that one had a different chemistry. The 90 pack they changed some chemistry to make the density higher, but they didn't redesign the cells, as far as I know. So, and that new chemistry might be like susceptible to I don't know, to heat buildup or something. It seems to not be that like, it seems to have some disadvantages, just to put it that way. But so you see that in the beginning it charged pretty fast, but what we have seen lately, many people report this, is that the 90 pack, if you discharge it fairly deep, let's say lower than 10%, like to 5% or something, then you will actually notice that the charging speed at the bottom is low. And this is something 85 packs don't get, because 85 pack you get the maximum speed all the way from the bottom. It seems like Tesla might have figured out that, you know, this chemistry, the 90 chemistry, cannot take it or something, so they restrict the low end. And also this is also something I've seen, and also other people have seen, that if you deep discharge it very close to zero, almost beyond zero, the charging speed will be very low. You get like 2 kilowatt, very few kilowatt, 2 to 5 kilowatt or something, for maybe 10 minutes. It's like the BMS is gently charging the battery at the very low end to not damage it. That's the only explanation, not to damage the battery, because, you know, the highest priority for a BMS is to not damage the battery, and that's actually a good thing, because you don't want to rush and, you know, charge fast. You don't care, but you will ruin the battery. But you see that overall, the new charging profile is slightly less aggressive than the one from last year, and that might be the reason why, you know, you don't get that dip at around 45% anymore. You actually get this even graph, and it stays more or less the same as the old one, you see. Alright, so that is a car that is not restricted. And then this one, you see the red graph here. Now, I cannot tell yet if this is the restricted or not, but last year, if you guys follow me, especially my road trips, you see that I struggle with sudden slow supercharger speed, and it happened around 8.0, but, you know, I blame the 8.0, but it's probably not the 8.0. It was probably something that bugged or kicked in or something. I believe it was a bug, and also other people had reported similar things, and some people noticed themselves, other people didn't notice until I told them, and then they tested it out, and then actually it turns out that they also had this bug. And what is this bug? Well, the bug is that when you are supercharging, when the battery reaches a high enough temperature, it will start to cool down the battery. You hear some fans, and eventually, you know, these fans can be kind of loud, and new users wonder if something wrong with the car, but that's normal. It's actually a good thing that these fans are blowing and cooling down the battery pack, because last year I actually had this issue around, I'm not sure when, maybe it started around November, and then it lasted until like January, February. Actually, it lasted until right before Easter, so a really long time I had slow charging speed. And you see on the red graph here that the charging speed is way lower. Like actually this was, I did a recent measurement, but before Christmas it was even worse than this. I was barely receiving like 85 kilowatt. It was you know, hovering around 85 kilowatt at maximum, and then it dropped significantly, and just more or less like this. And eventually this year during winter I figured out something, and you can see there's some footage here. You see snow. This is Alvdal supercharger. I figured out what was wrong, that the fans didn't start. And I tried something, like at a given state of charge, you know, I was charging at whatever power, and then when I unplugged, every time when I unplugged, the car I mean, the fan started, but when I plugged in again, the fan stopped. You know, so I was like, what? I want the fans to keep running while I'm supercharging. So I tried to do this cool down method, which actually worked. So I unplugged, waited for like a few minutes, or you know, the fans will start cooling, which brings down the temperature. And speaking of temperature, last year when I reported this to Tesla, they looked into the BMS and the car status, and they told me that the battery was running at 50 degrees Celsius. That sounds very high, because I believe that it's supposed to be at around 35 degrees Celsius. 50 is very high, and I never got a good explanation from them. Like, I told them that, you know, this car is charging slow, it's taking freaking forever, and they said, well, you pull a trailer and you supercharge a lot, so something, I mean, it goes slower because of that. And I'm like, what? I supercharged a lot with Millennium Falcon, it didn't go slower, you know. They never told me that the 90 pack was most likely the problem. And yeah, well, okay, it has something to do with the trailer. I will come back to that later. But okay, so it's, you know, when I unplugged and I let the battery cool down, and then when I plugged in again, I suddenly received much higher charging speed. And that can only tell you one thing, is that it's a thermal issue. And you know, some people might think, well, you know, people who abuse the supercharger network, they are being restricted by Tesla. The supercharger won't give them enough juice. Actually, the supercharger is somewhat kind of dumb. The car will dictate the supercharger how much it needs. I know someone from the dark side. We look into some service menus, use some programs, and the car reported, my car reported that it could only take, let's say, 85 kilowatt, and that's what it tells the supercharger, and the supercharger will just, okay, yeah, here you go, here you have 85. You know, the supercharger will never deliver more than the BMS will ask for. So it was a thermal issue, and you see, it was freaking slow. Like, oh man, it was so slow, and especially you see, okay, it was okay speed up until 45 kilowatt, but then it just slowed down. And I pull a trailer a lot, so I had to charge to 85-90% many times, and it took forever. So usually that charging session should take about 1 hour, and it took like 1 hour and 20 minutes. So 20 minutes extra is very long time. Yes, I was so like, I don't know, so tired of it. I wanted to figure out what was wrong. But here you see a new graph. It's like, what color is that? Shit, it's like yellowish, I guess. Poop color. No, wait, no, that's the other one. But anyway, yeah. So I did another measurement lately, and you see, after, I mean, right before Easter, that thermal issue was magically solved. It was right after I had the car service for something. I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, it was the fuse problem. Yeah, they fixed the fuse problem, and they also fixed something with the tow bar and whatever, you know. And then suddenly after that, usually during those service repairs, I get notification on my app that they do software update, and another software update, and sometimes software update fails, and then, you know, new software update. I believe all the time that there was a software bug, and I don't know if they fixed mine or if they fixed the whole bunch of cars or not, but mine was actually fixed. So now, yeah, after, I mean, right before Easter, the fans start running again when I supercharge. That's so great. And you see here on the graph that, you know, I don't get that major dip at 45% anymore. You know, it goes all the way up there. Yeah, but you also see here that this restricted car is slower than the unrestricted car. But I mean, how much is it in reality? Okay, you see that the restricted car is lower than the unrestricted, pretty much all the way. And something else you might notice is that, at least on these 90 packs, the speed on the supercharger, I mean, it builds up slowly, and actually it seems like it builds up at the same rate as the voltage goes up. So when I look at it closer, it seems like in the old days, at least, okay, if you look at the major from the 2016, the light, there's so many colors there, but the light blue one, it seems to go a little bit too high, and then it kind of like flattens out there on the top. It's almost like it clips there, you know, if you look at it as a sound wave. It's like some kind of clipping. It doesn't want to go, I mean, it shouldn't go higher. But then in the 2017, it seems like they put a cap on what seems to be around 280 amp, and then as the voltage goes up, you know, the speed also goes up. And then my car, which is restricted, seems to have a cap on around 240 amp, which is also just goes up. But you see where the unrestricted car at around, yeah, let's say around 50%, it starts, you know, going down, whereas my my restricted car, the speed just slowly goes up, and then it joins, I mean, it crosses at around 55% roughly. And to me it sounds like, okay, the unrestricted car can have higher power, but it actually slows down because it doesn't want to damage the battery pack. Whereas my car, it is already kind of low, so that's why it can just, you know, go higher. And the only limitation is that 240 amp cap. But then when it reaches around 55 to 60% state of charge, then, you know, it's the tapering that kicks in. And what does this mean in reality? Well, it has some. I mean, there's some time. We have to look at this time. Because in the end, it is the time you want to know about. But okay, well, hang on, I almost forgot this slide. Okay, let's switch back. Let's take out some graphs and look at this one. So, you see that I had a restricted measurement, but I also did another measurement earlier. I just called it Alvdal because I remember that was the one I tested it. And you see that the Alvdal session is a little bit different because, well, it is very similar, but at the higher state of charge, beyond 50 kilowatt, beyond 50%, it is then kind of slower than the other ones for some reason. But you know what? If you look at the lower end, you see that it is higher at the lower end. And that's because that session, I started at 7%, not 10%, which I did on the other sessions. So I'm like, yeah, so I'll come back to that, why it looks like this. Like, there's so much stuff here going on. So that one seems to be lower on the top, but I started earlier. Let's look at some numbers. I'll come back to that. Still so many like topics to talk about here. So in the end, you have to look at the numbers, I mean, at the time. And here you see a table where you have the unrestricted and the restricted, and these numbers are, well, state of charge, but the numbers here are in minutes. And you see that at the lower end, obviously, you've seen from the graph that the unrestricted is much faster. That's why, that's why the difference is so big. But we have some round-off errors here, so that's why you get some weird numbers. But let's say in the low end, you have about 20% difference in time. That's pretty huge. So if you wanna, let's say if you wanna charge for 15 minutes only, in the unrestricted, you can go from 10 to 40%, whereas the restricted only gives you 35%. You have 5% less there at the same time, you know, if you compare these two. So it depends how much you want to charge to, but most people, they probably charge it to, let's say, 60%. And then, yeah, at 60%, it takes 26 minutes for the unrestricted, but the restricted is only at 55%. It needs another 3 minutes. But then, you see, when you get higher, the difference is lower. So in the end, at the higher end, we only talk about 10% difference, or in minutes. Well, minutes is kind of 5 to 6 minutes difference, but that's over an hour, you know. But then what does this mean in reality? Well, it means that, okay, the restricted one is slower, but it also depends how you travel. There's so many factors here, so you can't just look at the number and say, oh man, it is so much slower, the car sucks now. Well, you try to do a run then, like try to travel, and then you can actually see in reality how bad it is. Because as for us, when we travel, sometimes we like wife and I, you know, sometimes we stop for 45 minutes maybe to eat or whatever, and the next time we stop for maybe 15 minutes, only do a short one, or 20 minutes. So at least the 45 session, the 45-minute session. Okay, for the unrestricted, you can probably pump it up to 83% or something, whereas the restricted will only get 80%. And also you have to consider something, that traveling time is also a component in the whole like sum. And if I would drive from here to Trondheim, for instance, I usually need to drive like 6 to 7 hours, and then I have to charge for, let's say, an hour or something. Depends on I have trailer or not, but let's say if you don't have trailer, maybe I have to charge an hour. Yes, charging speed is 10 to 20% slower, but in reality the whole traveling speed might be just less than 1%, because you have to consider that too. So in my opinion, it's not the end of the world that you have been restricted. But there is more to it, because there's also oh yeah, no, I should also mention, yeah, you have that column that says no fan. But you see, when we had that bug where the car didn't start the fan, then that was that was much slower in percentage, and also time wise. Like, oh man, especially, okay, you can say that if you have that bug and you only charge to 50%, then it's no big deal. But if you have to push it beyond 50%, let's say you will stop there for 45 minutes, as I mentioned. Okay, so the restricted, unrestricted will get 80 something percent, but the buggy car will only, won't reach 70% even. So that's much slower. So yes, check it out. I mean, test it. If you have a 90 pack and you notice that it is charging slower, just listen around. I mean, let's say between 20 to 50%. Listen if the fan start. It should start. If it doesn't start, try to do the trick that I do. If you get the same result, consult Tesla, and you have a software bug. I believe it's a software bug, or something. It could be hardware bug. I don't know, because they don't tell me anything. You know, that's how it is. So that's actually a big deal if the fans doesn't run, but restriction, not so big deal. Okay, but we are not done yet. So, you know, that got me thinking. Okay, let me scroll back here to this graph. So I mentioned that the Alvdal session was a little bit different. I started earlier. I mean, I started lower. So that means that the car has been like charging for a longer time. It didn't charge from 10 to 90%. It charged from 7 to 90%. So that means the whole charging session was slower. I mean, longer. And as I mentioned earlier, I suspect that the 90 pack does not have as good cooling as maybe the 85 or the 100. I heard that the 100 has better cooling, better design, and also they pack the cells better or something. So also you've seen on the earlier, let me go back to this one. Okay, so you've seen that there seems to be some kind of thermal issue based on the 2016 charging profile. So my theory is that you know, the battery, like the heat, the build up heat in the battery, I mean, the cooling cannot like get rid of it fast enough, or something like that. Or maybe there's some I don't know if this is thermal or something, but it seems like, you know, it cannot take too much. Like it needs some time to, I don't know, cool down or something. I'm not sure what is. I'm not a battery expert, but I did an experiment. So last weekend I went to a supercharger. It was cool. It doesn't really matter. And but if you guys, some of you guys also asked me like, but you know there could be a local restrictions on that supercharger. No, it's not. It's not. I mean, all the supercharger I visited also before and after, they can output at least 105, the classic ones, and the new ones they can output like 100 and, you know, whatever, 135 or 150, whatever. But they can output as much as the car can take. And most of the time when I test this, I'm all alone on that place. And also the car has been driven far enough to have good temperature. But so I did a little experiment. I went to Google and I think I arrived there with like 10%, and then I charged to 50%, and then I unplugged and I waited for the fan noise, but I couldn't hear. I mean, there could be some little fan noise, but it wasn't like too loud or something. But I think I sat there for like 10 minutes to let it cool down, and then I plugged in. And you see here, well, I call it the restricted half. That's what it says. The blue line is higher than the unrestricted one, and also the restricted one. So throughout most of it, you know, it was charging at faster speed. So that also tells me that the restriction is only at the bottom end. So why did I, you know, the yellow line, why was that one lower? I don't know. I mean, if it's a thermal problem, you know, it could be that I've been driving my trailer like I stole it, and then when I arrived at the supercharger, maybe the temperature was slightly higher. So, you know, my test might not be the best because I pull a trailer. If you don't pull a trailer, you have lower power output outtake from the battery, and there should be less heat in the battery. So, but you see that it is higher, it is faster. And if you look at the table here, you see that you have the unrestricted one, and then you have the half round I did from 50 to 90%, and you see it is actually charging faster than the unrestricted, because the unrestricted has a disadvantage. That measurement, it already built up some heat from 10% to 50, and then you have to go all the way. So in reality, again, it could mean that if you compare them again, maybe the difference is smaller than I measured, because, you know, my session, it seems to be like each test is not the same. You know, it depends on some other variables. And of course, yeah, and it's also much faster than the restricted one. But, you know, it seems like the restricted one maybe had a bad run or something. I don't know. So if you don't, I mean, it's, instead of doing a 45 to 60 minute charging session and then leap very far to the next supercharger, it could be better to just do a quick one, let's say a 20 minute session, and then stop on another one in between there, and meanwhile the battery will cool down during the run, so you don't sit and charge too long. So yes, if you do that, the difference might be smaller or bigger, we don't know. But yeah, so there's like so much. Okay, I have so many speculations around this. So I don't know, from what I've seen, it seems like the 90 pack is not the best pack. Well, yeah, it had more capacity than the 85, but only barely. You know, people say that the 85 pack had 75 kWh available, and then the 90 pack had 5 more roughly. Or well, they actually claim, some people claim 81 kWh. So yeah, okay, 6, maybe 5 now. But then again, the 85 pack, it's also supposed to have like 76 or something. So the difference is 5 kWh. Yeah. But the 100 pack, on the other hand, what was it again? I think some people claim that it had like whooping 95 or something, or a lot more. Like, yeah. That means that the 100 pack is truly, I mean, probably more than 100. This is, of course, just speculations, and don't take what I say as like a fact. But I would say, I would probably assume that if you can choose between a 90 pack and a 100 pack, I would go for a 100 pack. Not only because you have better acceleration, more battery capacity, but it also, I have measured the 100 pack and it charges much faster. I should have compared them with these numbers, you know, put them in the graph here, but it's slightly harder because I have to offset for state of charge. You know, you cannot compare state of charge on this one versus the 100 pack. But from what I've seen, the 100 pack is a beast. It charges freaking fast. It hit 115 kilowatt and it can stay there pretty long, and it has more capacity. So that means, yes, if you have to push this one to 90%, you know, you can push the other one to like 75 or 80 or close to 80%, and that will equal to 90 here. So in reality, as for me, for example, who drives with a trailer a lot, instead of taking a 45 to 60 minute charge, I can only do like a half an hour to 45 minutes. So I can save 10-15 minutes each place I charge, and that adds up on a long trip. It can be in hours, you know, by the time I come back again, like maybe 1-2 hours faster. So that's huge. So actually, if you're planning on supercharging a lot, driving far, and especially if you're planning on hauling like a trailer, horse trailer, caravan or something, you should go for a 100 pack. I mean, you can get away with a 60, 75, or well, actually 60 is not available, but the 75 or 90. But it could also be troublesome. And I have a little explanation why, you know, the unrestricted car, even at higher state of charge, you see that the brown line there is more or less over the yellowish line. But when I let it cool down, then it was higher. You know, my car was faster. It could be because my battery has done about 70. Well, by the time I measured, it was at like, let's say 74,000 kilometers, and you can't just look at the number. You can't just look at the kilometers. You can more or less multiply it by maybe not 2, but close to 2, because you know consumption is high, and I have to do more cycles to do that. So let's say this one is equal to over 100,000 kilometers at least. Yeah, maybe 110, 120,000 kilometers of normal driving. But actually, it could also be worse, because during the bug, you know, I don't know how long the battery was running at 50 degrees Celsius. But that means that my car, I mean, my battery has aged compared to the other one that has barely been supercharged and hasn't driven that much. And a battery that has aged a while, it has higher internal resistance. And when you supercharge, or when you discharge, but when you supercharge, it will also mean more heat generated. So this could be an explanation why my session kind of, you know, I was going to say died off, or maybe I could say overheated faster than the fresh car. Yeah. But yes, that's a lot of stuff. I hope I didn't forget anything, because it was like so much detail about this. Yeah, so at least I think that the stuff I have found out, you know, is at least some of this stuff is not something that other people know yet, or whatever. Yeah, but then again, you know, I could be doing something wrong, because you know I have a trailer, and maybe the trailer is causing the car to charge slower because of higher heat buildup. I don't know, but yeah, I believe at least that my findings are more or less correct, and at least for the bug with the, you know, with the thermal issue and the cool down thing. That one, yeah, as you can see, the video doesn't lie. But yeah, but anyway, yes, I also get this question a lot, like, oh, why won't you replace, I mean, exchange your car for another, for 100 one? Yes, I would, but you know what? I've talked to Tesla, and they said it's okay for me to get an upgrade. So I will actually get a battery upgrade from this one, the 90 pack, to 100 pack. So Tesla said I can exchange some of the Powerwall as long as the value is the same. I don't know yet how much that battery upgrade will be. Let's say 20,000 euros or dollars. Then I can exchange maybe 2 or 3 Powerwalls for that battery upgrade. But I already won so many Powerwalls. If I put like 6 or 7 Powerwalls on the wall, the whole house would just, you know, the whole wall would just fall off. But of course, yeah, with the Powerwall 1, you have to put mount on the wall. But Powerwall 2 can be just, you know, placed vertically, and you can stack them together. You know? But still, I live in Norway. I don't need Powerwall. I mean, the stuff I know about Powerwall is I don't need it, and I might just put in one there just for fun of it. But the electricity in Norway is so freaking cheap, and also very, very stable. We have never outage. I mean, it could happen once every 3 years that the power goes off, even during thunderstorm or whatever shit we have here. Actually, we don't have thunderstorm. It's like it's paradise here in Norway. Yeah, as if for EV drivers. But anyway, so yes, I will get the upgrade, and I'm not gonna get the AP2 yet because I'm actually waiting for AP3. I will skip one generation. There's no need for me to rush to get AP2. I can always borrow an AP2 car from someone. But yes, I will get the 100 pack because from the more I know about the 90 pack, the more I want the 100 pack. It seems to be a much better battery pack in many ways. Yeah. So yes, again. Sorry, I've been talking for almost 40 minutes. This is the insight I have. Give it to you guys. I hope you like it. I hope this is useful for you, and it might also be a source for, you know, researching or testing some more. Maybe you guys also find out more about this mystery. Yeah, I consider it still a little bit mystery here, even though we might have solved most of it now. Yeah, so I guess that's gonna be it for now. So yes, and as usual, if you like my content and you want to support me on Patreon, please do it. I'm always grateful. You know, only $1 will help a lot. Yeah, I will still do Nimber tasks. What you see back here is actually Nimber tasks. I'm going to do a Nimber run tomorrow. I will also live stream tomorrow. Yeah, I have a live stream channel. It's Tesla Björn Live. I will not live stream to the main channel again. I can now live stream to the Tesla Björn Live channel. You can just search for Tesla Björn Live or something on YouTube, and you will find you can subscribe to it. When you subscribe, you get a notification when I go live. But I will also make more road trip videos. But you know, I have to pay my bills. So yes. But that's it for now. So thank you for watching.